My name is Samantha Wilson, and at 32 years old, I had mastered a double life. To my judgmental family, I was a government nobody. In reality, I led an elite federal investigative team. Returning to my hometown for the dreaded family dinner, I steeled myself for their dismissive comments about my career. Little did they know that the upscale restaurant they chose to flaunt their success would be the place where my carefully maintained facade would dramatically unravel. Before I tell you how my family dinner turned into an unexpected revelation, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had your achievements overlooked by the people who should support you most. Growing up in the affluent suburbs of Greenwich, Connecticut meant living under constant pressure to achieve. Our sprawling colonial home with its manicured lawns and heated swimming pool was the perfect backdrop for my parents to showcase their 3 children to their equally successful friends and colleagues. In the Wilson family, success had a very specific definition that I never quite fit. My sister Bethany, 3 years my senior at 35, embodied everything my parents valued. With her Harvard medical degree and position as a cardiothoracic surgeon at one of Boston's most prestigious hospitals, she was the golden child. Her marriage to Richard, a hedge fund manager whose family was even wealthier than ours, only cemented her status. Their waterfront home summer vacations in the Hamptons and 2 perfectly behaved children completed the picture of success my parents proudly displayed on their mantle. My younger brother, Ethan, at 30, was cut from the same ambitious cloth. After graduating from Stanford with dual degrees in computer science and business, he launched 3 successful tech startups before his 28th birthday. The youngest millionaire in our family, Ethan, divided his time between Silicon Valley and New York, making strategic investments and appearing in business magazines as one of the top entrepreneurs under 35. His sleek, minimalist apartment overlooking Central Park was featured in Architectural Digest last year, another accomplishment my mother mentioned at every opportunity. Then there was me, the middle child who never quite fit the mold. My father, Gerald, a retired executive who had run a Fortune 500 company, expected all his children to follow his path to corporate success. My mother, Diana, a former state senator with connections throughout New England, had political aspirations for us that I never shared. Their disappointment in my career choices was something I had learned to live with over the years. From an early age, I was different. While Bethany organized her toys by color and Ethan built complex structures with his building blocks, I was drawn to solving puzzles and reading mystery novels. By the time I was 10, I had devoured every Nancy Drew book and moved on to Sherlock Holmes. My heroes were not CEOs or politicians, but the investigators who sought truth and justice. When college application time came, my parents assumed I would apply to Ivy League business schools or pre-law programs. The family dinner where I announced my intention to major in criminal justice at a state university was the first time I saw genuine disappointment in their eyes. Criminal justice. What kind of career is that for someone with your background? My father had asked, his fork suspended midair, as if my words had physically stopped him from eating. Law enforcement is a respectable field, I had defended. Respectable for someone without options, Bethany had interjected. But you could do so much more, Sam. Throughout college, every holiday break brought renewed pressure to change my major. When I graduated with honors and announced my intention to apply to federal law enforcement, my mother actually cried, not from pride, but from what she perceived as wasted potential. After completing the intensive training program, I was assigned to a standard field office where I spent 2 years proving myself. Then came the day that changed everything. I was recruited into a specialized unit dealing with complex financial crimes and counterterrorism. The work was challenging, important, and exactly what I had always wanted to do. There was one catch. Due to the sensitive nature of our operations, much of my work was classified. We were encouraged to keep our specific roles vague, even with family. This security protocol became my perfect excuse. Rather than trying to explain my career to my dismissive family, I simply let them believe I had a mundane government desk job. For 5 years, I built a successful career, investigating high-profile cases, leading operations that occasionally made national news, though my name was never mentioned. I had found purpose and recognition among my peers and superiors, even as my family continued to view me as the underachiever. Director Harrington personally commended my work on the Bradley investment fraud case that recovered over $300 million for victims. Agent Tanner, my first mentor, requested me specifically to lead the task force on the Westwood counterfeiting operation. Last year, I received a confidential commendation from the secretary herself after my team prevented a potential attack on financial infrastructure. None of these accomplishments could be shared with my family. Instead, I listened to their thinly veiled suggestions about career counselors and positions at family, friends, companies. I endured Thanksgiving dinners where Bethany and Ethan dominated the conversation with their latest achievements, while my parents nodded approvingly. When asked about my work, I gave vague answers about paperwork and office politics, watching their interest fade before I even finished speaking. After a while, I stopped attending most family gatherings. My work provided a convenient excuse, and my team became something of a surrogate family. Fellow agents Catherine and Joseph understood my passion in ways my biological family never had. We celebrated successes together, supported each other through difficult cases, and never questioned the value of our chosen path. It had been almost 2 years since I had seen my entire family together. 2 years of holiday phone calls and occasional text messages. 2 years of advancing my career, while they assumed I was stagnating. Now, with my father turning 65, my mother had insisted on a family dinner that I could not refuse. What they did not know was that I was not the same person they had last seen. I had been promoted twice now, leading my own specialized task force. I had trained new agents, presented at international conferences under classified credentials, and earned the respect of the highest levels of the agency. My quiet confidence had replaced the need for their approval, or so I thought, until I found myself driving back to the town where I would always be the family disappointment. The drive from Washington, D.C. to Greenwich took just over 4 hours each mile, bringing a strange mixture of nostalgia and anxiety. As the familiar exit appeared on the highway, I felt my shoulders tense. This town held the memories of never quite measuring up, of always being the odd one out in a family of overachievers. I had booked a room at the Harborview Hotel rather than staying at my parents' house. When my mother called to ask why I cited an early morning meeting the day after our dinner, a small lie that spared us both the discomfort of forced proximity. The truth was that I needed neutral territory, a place to retreat, when the inevitable comments about my career began. Checking into the hotel, I was greeted by a young receptionist named Laura who efficiently processed my information. The Harborview had been renovated since I last visited now, sporting a sleek, modern aesthetic that catered to the wealthy business travelers who passed through Greenwich. "Business or pleasure, Miss Wilson?" Laura asked as she handed me my key card. "Family," I replied, which made her smile sympathetically, as if she understood that family visits constituted their own category. My room overlooked the harbor sailboats bobbing gently in the late afternoon sun. I unpacked quickly, hanging up the single professional outfit I had brought for dinner. Unlike Bethany, who would undoubtedly arrive in designer labels, or Ethan, who had embraced the tech executive uniform of expensive minimalism, I had opted for a simple black pantsuit that I often wore to court testimonies. As I was freshening up, my secure phone buzzed with a message from Frederick, my second-in-command back in Washington. "Just updating you on the Blackwood situation," his text read. "New financial records came in, looking promising for the warrant. We'll keep you posted." I smiled, thinking about the case we had been building for months against Jonathan Blackwood, a real estate developer suspected of laundering money for international criminal organizations. We were close to making an arrest that would dismantle a significant part of their network. "Good work," I texted back. "Run everything by Natalie in legal before proceeding. I will check in tomorrow." This exchange reminded me of who I had become outside the shadow of my family. In Washington, I was Agent Wilson, respected team leader, known for my methodical approach and analytical mind. Here in Greenwich, I was just Sam, the daughter who had settled for less. I had arranged to meet Zachary, a local contact from the Connecticut field office, for coffee before dinner. As the local liaison for our current case, he had information that could not be sent through electronic channels. The coffee shop was crowded when I arrived, filled with afternoon commuters and high school students. Zachary was already seated in a corner booth, his unremarkable appearance perfect for our line of work. No one would look twice at him or remember him later. "Agent Wilson," he greeted me with a professional nod. "Good to see you." "Likewise," I said, sliding into the booth. "What do you have for me?" For the next 20 minutes, we discussed the local connections to our Blackwood investigation, speaking in the coded language that would sound like innocent conversation to any eavesdroppers. Zachary passed me a flash drive disguised as a house key containing encrypted files on Blackwood associates in the Greenwich area. "Thank you," I said as we concluded. "This will be helpful." As Zachary left, I remained to finish my coffee, making notes on my secure tablet. I was so absorbed in my work that I did not immediately notice the woman approaching my table until she spoke. "Samantha Wilson, is that you?" Looking up, I found myself face to face with Brittany Collins, former high school classmate and perpetual social climber. With her perfectly highlighted hair and tennis bracelet glinting in the coffee shop lighting, she looked like she had walked straight out of a Connecticut lifestyle magazine. "Brittany," I acknowledged quickly, closing my tablet case. "How are you?" "Thriving," she exclaimed with practiced enthusiasm. "Thomas and I just finished renovating our summer home in Martha Vineyard, and the foundation keeps me so busy with charity events." She paused, eyeing my simple blazer and practical hairstyle. "What about you? Still working for the government?" The way she said government made it sound like I collected garbage for a living. This was exactly the attitude I would face in a few hours with my family. "Yes, still with the government," I replied evenly. "That is so steady," she said with false admiration. "Thomas always says government employees are the backbone of the country, even if they never make the big bucks." Her laughter tinkled like ice in a crystal glass. "Are you in town for long?" "Just for my father's birthday dinner tonight." "How lovely, we must catch up properly sometime. Maybe you could join me and the girls for brunch at the club tomorrow." The invitation was clearly perfunctory, her eyes already scanning the room for more important people to acknowledge. "Unfortunately, I have an early meeting," I said, grateful for my hotel excuse once again. "Next time then," she said brightly, already stepping away. "So good to see you doing well." The interaction left a familiar bitter taste. It was a preview of the evening to come, the subtle condescension, the assumptions about my career and finances, the dismissal of my choices as somehow less than. Back at the hotel, I took my time getting ready for dinner, a process that felt more like preparing for an undercover operation than a family gathering. In many ways it was. I had been playing a role with my family for years, downplaying my actual responsibilities and achievements to maintain operational security. As I applied minimal makeup, my phone chimed with a text from Bethany. "Do you need me to send you money for dinner? The Bellevue is quite expensive and I know government salaries are tight." I stared at the message, torn between amusement and irritation. My salary as a senior agent with specialized training and security clearance was actually substantial, not to mention the performance bonuses I had received for successful operations. I could buy the entire restaurant if I wanted to liquidate some investments. Instead of responding, I slipped the phone into my purse and took one final look in the mirror. The woman who stared back was confident, accomplished, and about to walk into a battlefield disguised as a birthday dinner. The Bellevue restaurant stood as a testament to Greenwich wealth, its stone facade and ivy-covered walls suggesting old money and exclusivity. Valet attendants in crisp uniforms rushed to open car doors for arriving guests, most of whom emerged from luxury vehicles that cost more than the average annual salary. I had arrived 15 minutes early, a habit from my training days that had served me well in the field. Being first on scene allowed me to assess the environment, note exits and potential security concerns, and generally prepare myself mentally. Tonight it meant I could choose my seat strategically and center myself before the family dynamics kicked into high gear. The maitre d', an elegant woman named Simone, greeted me with professional courtesy. "Reservation for Wilson," I said. "I believe my father arranged it." Her eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Ah yes, Mr. Gerald Wilson, birthday celebration. He is one of our most valued patrons." She consulted her tablet. The rest of your party has not arrived, but I can seat you now if you prefer. That would be great, thank you. She led me through the main dining room, a showcase of crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and hushed conversations. The clientele was exactly what I expected: wealthy couples discussing stock portfolios, business associates, closing deals over expensive wine, old money families maintaining their social standing through public appearances. Our table was prominently positioned near the center of the room, my father, typical choice to ensure he would be seen by anyone who mattered. I selected a chair facing the entrance, another professional habit that allowed me to monitor arrivals. A young server approached, his demeanor indicating he was new but eager to impress. "Good evening, my name is Jared, and I will be assisting with your service tonight," he said, placing a linen napkin across my lap with practiced precision. "May I bring you something to drink while you wait for the rest of your party?" "Just water for now, thank you." As Jared left to fetch my water, I observed the other diners automatically categorizing them as I would during an operation. The couple by the window were celebrating something, leaning close and speaking intimately. The group of 4 businessmen at the corner table were clearly concluding a successful negotiation, their body language relaxed, yet triumphant. The older woman dining alone was a regular, based on her comfortable interactions with the staff. This analytical mindset kept me grounded, reminding me of who I had become rather than who my family thought I was. Jared returned with water served in a crystal glass. "Are you expecting 4 more guests?" "Yes," I confirmed. "My parents, sister, and brother." "Excellent. I will keep an eye out for them." He hesitated, seeming to study my face. "Forgive me, but have you dined with us before? You look somewhat familiar." I maintained a neutral expression. "I have not been here in many years." Before he could respond, the restaurant door opened, and my family made their entrance. Even after 2 years, some things never changed, including their need to make an impression. My father led the procession, his tall frame and silver hair, giving him a distinguished appearance that matched his custom-tailored suit. My mother followed, her blonde highlights, freshly done diamond earrings, catching the light with each practiced movement. Bethany and Ethan trailed behind, both engrossed in their phones until the last possible moment. I stood as they approached, plastering on a smile that felt foreign on my face. Samantha, my mother, kissed both my cheeks, careful not to smudge her makeup. "You look professional." From my mother, this was neither a compliment nor an insult, merely an observation that I had met the minimum standard for appearance. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, offering a brief hug that he accepted with his typical restraint. "Thank you for making the trip up," he replied formally, as if I had traveled from another continent rather than a few hours away. Bethany finally looked up from her phone, her eyes quickly scanning my outfit. She wore a burgundy designer dress that probably cost more than most people monthly rent, complemented by the tennis bracelet her husband had given her for their anniversary. "Sam, you made it," she said, embracing me with one arm while still clutching her phone. "That suit is holding up well. Is it the same one from Cousin Tiffany's wedding?" "Good to see you too, Bethany," I replied, ignoring the thinly veiled comment about my wardrobe recycling. Ethan at least seemed genuinely pleased to see me. "Hey sis," he said, giving me a more authentic hug. "Been too long." We all took our seats, with my father naturally taking the head of the table. Jared returned to take drink orders, my father immediately launching into a detailed request for a specific vintage of wine that required the sommelier consultation. "And do bring us your specialty appetizer selection," my mother added. "We are celebrating Gerald's 65th birthday." "Of course, Mrs. Wilson." "Excellent choice," Jared replied smoothly before departing. The small talk began immediately, focusing exclusively on family achievements and social standing. "Bethany just spoke at the International Cardiovascular Conference," my mother announced proudly, "the youngest keynote speaker in the event history." It was nothing, Bethany demurred with false modesty, "just sharing our department research on minimally invasive techniques." Richard had to reschedule his Tokyo trip to watch the children, but these professional obligations cannot be avoided. My father nodded approvingly before turning to Ethan. "Tell your sister about your new investment opportunity." Ethan perked up, always eager to discuss business. "We are developing a revolutionary payment processing system. Just secured $16 million in second-round funding last week. The venture capital firm practically begged to be included. That is wonderful, honey, my mother beamed before glancing at me with significantly less enthusiasm. And how is your job, Samantha? The way she hesitated made it clear that my career was an afterthought, a obligatory question, rather than genuine interest. It is going well, I replied vaguely, busy as always. Still at that same government office, my father asked, his tone suggesting stagnation. Still in the same department, yes. Was his only response, attention already shifting away? The sommelier arrived with the wine, going through the tasting ritual with my father, who made a show of his expertise. Once the wine was served to everyone except me, who had declined in favor of water, Bethany leaned forward with a smirk. "Can you even afford this place?" she asked in a stage whisper. "Government salaries are so restrictive, we can cover your portion if needed." I felt the familiar sting of her condescension but maintained my composure. "I appreciate the concern, but I can manage." "If you say so," she replied skeptically. "I just remember you mentioning budget cuts last time we spoke." That had been nearly 2 years ago, and since then I had received 2 substantial promotions. Not that they needed to know that. The appetizers arrived, saving me from having to respond. As Jared arranged the elaborate display of seafood and pâté, my family continued their conversation as if I were not there, discussing country club politics and the latest additions to the yacht club marina. I sat quietly picking at the gourmet food that did not appeal to my practical tastes, and wondered how I had ever sought validation from these people who knew nothing about who I truly was or what I actually valued. "Let us order another bottle," my father announced as the sommelier cleared our appetizer plates. Without consulting anyone, he pointed to an even more expensive selection on the wine list. "The 1984 Bordeaux, I think." My mother nodded approvingly while scrolling through her phone. "Perfect choice, Gerald. Did I mention the Henderson donated a new wing to the hospital? We should consider something similar for your legacy." The casual mention of multi-million-dollar donations was typical of their dinner conversations. Money was never discussed directly, but its presence infused every topic from vacation properties to charitable giving, always with an undertone of competition. Speaking of property, my father continued swirling his wine. The contractor finally finished the renovations on the Martha Vineyard house. The new infinity pool overlooks the entire bay. "We will have everyone over for the 4th of July weekend," my mother added. "The Prescotts, the Andersons, the Whitfields. It will be the event of the summer." I noticed they had not included me in this gathering, though Bethany and Ethan were clearly invited. The exclusion was so natural they did not even realize they had done it. "The guest house has been completely rebuilt as well," Bethany chimed in. "Richard wants to dock the new boat there instead of the marina. 36 feet of pure luxury." The main course arrived, elaborate plates of food arranged like artwork. Jared described each dish with rehearsed precision, naming sauces and preparation methods that meant nothing to me but impressed my family sufficiently. As we began eating, my mother turned her attention to my personal life, her favorite topic of criticism. "Samantha, you remember Harold Livingston's son Peter? He just made partner at his law firm in Boston. Divorced last year, no children. I mentioned you might be interested in reconnecting." I nearly choked on my roasted duck. "Mom, I am not interested in being set up, especially not with Peter Livingston. We had nothing in common in high school, and I doubt that has changed." "You cannot afford to be so picky at your age," she replied dismissively. 32 and still single is concerning. And a man like Peter would not mind helping you find a more suitable career." "My career is perfectly suitable," I replied, feeling the familiar defensiveness rising. Bethany patted my hand condescendingly. "Sam, be realistic. Your biological clock is ticking, and men in certain circles expect their wives to have prestigious positions or at least family connections they can leverage. Your government job is hardly a selling point." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my purse. Normally I would ignore it during a family dinner, but the specific vibration pattern indicated a priority message from my team. "Excuse me for a moment," I said, standing up. "I need to take this." During dinner, my mother looked scandalized. Surely whatever paperwork emergency can wait. It will just take a minute, I insisted, already moving toward the restaurant entrance. Once in the relative privacy of the lobby, I checked the message from Agent Raymond. Blackwood making unexpected move. Assets being liquidated through Greenwich Trust. Local team requesting guidance, ASAP. This was significant. Jonathan Blackwood was a key target in our money laundering investigation, and any unusual financial movements required immediate attention. I quickly called Raymond. "Talk to me," I said when he answered. Blackwood transferred $8 million through 3 shell companies in the past hour. Final destination appears to be an account at Greenwich Trust. Zachary is monitoring but needs authorization for the next steps. Tell him to implement Protocol Aspen. Full surveillance, no intervention yet. I want to see where this money is headed before we move. Brief Director Hartley, and have the financial forensics team standing by. Yes, ma'am. Do you need to return to headquarters? I glanced back toward the dining room, where my family continued their meal, probably already discussing my absence as further evidence of my inadequacy. Not yet. Keep me updated, and I will reassess in an hour. Ending the call, I took a deep breath and returned to the table where my family barely acknowledged my return. Your food is getting cold, my mother noted disapprovingly. Sorry about that, I said, resuming my seat. Work issue. Ethan glanced up from his own phone. What kind of government paperwork is so urgent on a Friday night? Did someone file the wrong form? The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. In his world, government work meant bureaucratic tedium, not time-sensitive national security matters. Something like that, I muttered, taking a bite of my now lukewarm dinner. You should really upgrade your phone, Ethan continued, eyeing my secure device with disdain. That model is at least 2 years old. I can send you a link to the latest tech. Maybe a payment plan would make it affordable on your budget. I bit back a retort about how my outdated phone contained security features that his flashy device could not match. Instead, I simply nodded and changed the subject. How is the new app development going? This successfully diverted Ethan into a lengthy monologue about his latest project, allowing me to eat in relative peace while appearing interested. My father and Bethany soon joined in discussing investment strategies and market projections that deliberately excluded me. When I returned from my brief absence, I noticed they had been discussing me. The slight pause in conversation, the exchanged glances, the way my mother straightened her posture, all indicated I had been the topic. We were just discussing Thanksgiving plans, my mother said too quickly. We are thinking of Aspen this year. The Hartwell family has offered their chalet. Sounds nice, I replied neutrally, though I suspected I would once again be working through the holiday by choice. Richard has arranged for a private chef for the week, Bethany added. The children are excited about the ski lessons, though I told Richard 5 is too young for black diamond trails regardless of their natural athleticism. The conversation continued in this vein, discussions of luxury experiences and accomplishments that reinforced the family hierarchy. My father dominated the conversation occasionally, allowing Bethany and Ethan to contribute while my mother offered supporting comments. I was expected to listen admiringly, offering little more than appropriate acknowledgement of their superior lifestyle. As dessert menus were presented, my father turned to me with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Samantha, I have been meaning to ask. Have you given any more thought to Jim Donnelly's offer? He still has that position open in his firm legal department. The salary would be triple what you make now, and there would be actual career advancement. The question ignited a slow burn of anger. Jim Donnelly was my father's old golf buddy, and this generous offer had been dangled in front of me for years, a constant reminder that my family had never accepted my career choice. I am not interested in corporate law, Dad. I have told you that repeatedly. But you are not using your potential, he insisted. Pushing papers at some government office is hardly challenging for someone with your education. Gerald is right, my mother interjected. Look at your cousins. Jacob made vice president at 30. Jennifer is heading her own division at the bank. Even your younger cousins are outpacing you career-wise. Bethany nodded in agreement. Your government clerical job might be comfortable, Sam, but it hardly sets you up for the future. What about retirement? Benefits security? The irony of them questioning my job security when I literally worked in national security almost made me laugh. My job provides everything I need, I said firmly. But is that really all you want? My father pressed. To just meet basic needs, the Wilson name stands for excellence, for achievement. Your sister and brother understand that. I felt a familiar pressure building inside me, the urge to reveal the truth about my career, to see the shock on their faces when they learned that their underachieving daughter led critical national security operations. But professional discipline kept me silent. My work was too important to compromise for the temporary satisfaction of proving them wrong. Instead, I took a sip of water and prepared to endure another round of career advice I had never asked for and would never follow. As my family continued dissecting my perceived career failures, I noticed Jared, our server trainee, approaching the table with an older woman I had not seen before. She carried herself with the authority of a senior staff member, her experienced eyes scanning our table as they approached. "Excuse the interruption," the older woman said smoothly. "I am Patricia, the evening manager. I wanted to personally check that everything is to your satisfaction, Mr. Wilson." My father, always responsive to deferential treatment, straightened in his chair. "Everything is excellent as always, Patricia." Patricia nodded graciously before her gaze settled on me, a flash of recognition crossing her face. I immediately tensed, running through mental scenarios of where we might have met. "Agent Wilson," she said with genuine respect in her voice, "I did not realize you were joining us tonight." A sudden silence fell over the table. My father's wineglass stopped midway to his mouth. Jared, the trainee, stepped forward with an eager smile. "Welcome back, federal agent. Your usual coffee." He gestured to a senior server who was already approaching with a specific brew. "Black, no sugar, just as you prefer during operations." My father choked on his water, coughing violently as my mother patted his back with a stunned expression. "I believe there must be some mistake," my mother began weakly. Patricia shook her head. "No mistake, Mrs. Wilson. We have had the privilege of working with Agent Wilson during the Stevens investigation last spring. Her team used our establishment as a surveillance point for several weeks." "Your daughter's leadership was impressive," Jared added enthusiastically. "The way she coordinated the entire operation from our back office while maintaining complete discretion was remarkable." Patricia nodded in agreement. "We were instructed not to acknowledge Agent Wilson outside of official capacity, but since you are family," she smiled apologetically at me, "I hope this does not compromise anything current." My carefully constructed facade had just spectacularly collapsed. Bethany's mouth had dropped open, her perfectly manicured hand frozen around her wineglass. Ethan was staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. My mother looked like she might faint. "It is fine, Patricia," I finally said, falling back on my professional tone. "No current operations would be compromised by this acknowledgement." My father, having recovered from his coughing fit, was the first to find his voice. "What exactly is the meaning of this, Samantha? What agent? What operations?" Before I could respond, the restaurant manager Garrett approached our table, his expression serious but respectful. "Agent Wilson," he greeted me with a slight nod. "I apologize for the breach in protocol. Rest assured that all our staff are trained in discretion, but sometimes enthusiasm overcomes training." He gave Jared a pointed look. "It is not a problem, Garrett," I assured him. "Family dinner, not official business tonight." "Of course." He turned to my stunned family. "You should be very proud. Agent Wilson team apprehended a major financial criminal using evidence gathered right here. The case made all the difference to dozens of victims who had been defrauded of their life savings." My family stared at Garrett as if he were speaking a foreign language. "I believe there has been some confusion," my mother attempted again, her social training kicking in to salvage what she perceived as an awkward situation. "My daughter works in a government office, administrative position." Garrett looked confused for a moment before understanding dawned on his face. He glanced at me with new comprehension before smoothly responding. "Of course, Mrs. Wilson. My apologies for the interruption. Please enjoy the rest of your evening." He led Patricia and Jared away, leaving a thick silence at our table. I took a deliberate sip of water, waiting for the inevitable questions. "Samantha, my father finally said, his voice unnaturally controlled. Would you care to explain what just happened? Before I could answer, my secure phone buzzed again, this time with the distinct pattern that indicated Director Charlotte herself was calling. This was not a call I could ignore, regardless of the family drama unfolding. I need to take this, I said, already standing. It is important. More important than explaining why restaurant staff are calling you a federal agent, Bethany demanded, finding her voice at last. Actually, yes, I replied honestly, stepping away from the table. In the restaurant lobby, I answered the call. Wilson. Sam, we have a situation. Director Charlotte's voice was crisp. Blackwood is making his move tonight. The Greenwich Trust transfer was just the beginning. We have intel suggesting he is planning to leave the country within the hour. I need you at the field office immediately. Understood. I am 20 minutes out. The team is assembling. Zachary has the local agents on standby. I will be there. I ended the call and returned to the table one last time. My family sat in confused silence, their expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to growing curiosity. I apologize, but I need to leave, I announced, gathering my purse. Work emergency. You are not leaving until you explain what is going on, my father insisted, using the authoritative tone that had intimidated me as a child, but now seemed merely presumptuous. I do not have time to explain right now, I replied calmly. What you heard is partially correct. I am a federal agent, not an administrative assistant. The details of my work are classified, and that is all I can say at the moment. Classified, Ethan repeated incredulously. You. I straightened to my full height, allowing a glimpse of my professional demeanor to show through. Yes, Ethan, me. I lead a specialized task force investigating financial crimes and national security threats. And right now my team needs me for an active operation. I placed my napkin on the table and withdrew my wallet, laying down several $100 bills. This should cover my portion, and then some. Happy birthday, Dad. I will call tomorrow. For the first time in my adult life, I walked away from my family with my head held high, not a hint of apology or shame in my posture. Behind me, I could hear my mother confused questions and my father demands for answers, but I was already mentally shifting into operational mode, leaving Samantha, the disappointing daughter, behind and stepping fully into Agent Wilson's task. Force leader with a job to do. The local field office hummed with focused energy when I arrived. Agents moved with purpose, computer screens displayed surveillance feeds, and the atmosphere crackled with the tension of an operation in progress. This was my natural environment where my skills and leadership were valued without question. Agent Hannah, my point person for financial tracking, approached immediately with a tablet displaying Blackwood movement of funds. The money is being consolidated through 3 separate accounts, she explained, swiping through transaction records. Final destination appears to be a bank in the Cayman Islands with notoriously strict privacy laws. Agent Marcus joined us, adding surveillance confirms Blackwood arrived at his Greenwich estate 30 minutes ago. He is moving between buildings, likely gathering essentials before departure. His private jet filed a flight plan for Barbados, leaving at 11:30 p.m. I checked my watch. Just over 2 hours to intercept him before he left U.S. jurisdiction. Where are we on the warrant? I asked, moving toward the command center. Judge Thornton signed off 10 minutes ago, Hannah confirmed. Full authorization for arrest and seizure of financial records. Good. Let us coordinate with local police for roadblocks on all routes to the airport. I want surveillance teams at both his estate exits and drone coverage of the grounds. Marcus prepped the tactical team for possible resistance. Hannah, continue monitoring fund movements and lock down any accounts we have legal access to. For the next hour, we planned and executed with practiced precision. This was what I had trained for, what I excelled at. Here, my family opinion of my career could not have been more irrelevant. The operation came to a head just after 10 p.m., when Blackwood attempted to leave his estate through a service road only to find our agents waiting. The arrest was executed without incident, though the look of shock on Blackwood's face when he realized his elaborate escape plan had been anticipated was something I would remember with satisfaction. As the tactical team transported Blackwood to the federal detention center and evidence collection teams secured his property, I debriefed with the team leaders. Excellent work, everyone, I concluded, as we finished documenting the initial findings. The financial trail you uncovered, Hannah, was crucial, and Marcus, your tactical plan was executed flawlessly. Just following your playbook, boss, Marcus replied with a respectful nod. Initial estimates suggest we have frozen over $30 million in illegally obtained funds, Hannah added. The victims will have a good chance of recovery. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I finally made it back to my hotel room. The adrenaline of the operation had worn off, leaving me tired but satisfied with the outcome. Only then did I check my personal phone and found it flooded with notifications. 6 missed calls from my father, 4 from my mother, 3 from Bethany, 2 from Ethan, a dozen text messages ranging from confused to demanding to surprisingly respectful. My father's voice message was predictably authoritative. Samantha, I expect a full explanation of what happened tonight. Call me back immediately, regardless of the hour. My mother's message was concerned with appearances. Darling, I do not understand what happened at dinner, but we need to discuss this as a family before rumors start circulating at the club. Bethany had shifted from condescension to curiosity. Sam, you cannot drop a bomb like that and just leave. What exactly do you do? Call me. Most surprising was Ethan's message. Hey sis, I think I have completely misjudged you for years. That was the most badass exit I have ever seen. Respect. Let us talk when you can. I set the phone aside without responding. The emotional energy required to deal with my family realization would have to wait until morning. Instead, I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the tension of both the operation and the dinner revelation. The next morning, after sending my case notes to Director Charlotte, I texted my family to meet for breakfast at the local diner rather than the country club my mother had suggested. This conversation needed to happen on neutral ground, not in the environment that had reinforced their perceptions of me for years. Sunnyside Diner was a casual establishment with vinyl booths and laminated menus, the kind of place my family would normally avoid. I arrived first, selecting a corner booth that offered privacy while still allowing me to observe the entrance. My family arrived together looking somewhat out of place in their designer casual wear. My father's expression was serious, my mother seemed nervous, and Bethany and Ethan showed open curiosity. They slid into the booth across from me, an unconscious, united front. Thank you for coming. I began taking control of the conversation before they could start. I know you have questions about last night. That would be an understatement, my father replied dryly. Finding out your daughter is apparently some kind of secret agent tends to raise questions. I am not a secret agent in the Hollywood sense, I clarified. I am a federal investigative specialist leading a task force that focuses on financial crimes with national security implications. But your job, my mother began. You always said you worked in a government office, paperwork and meetings. That was partially true and intentionally vague. The nature of my work requires discretion. Many details are classified, and we are encouraged to maintain a low profile even with family. How long have you been doing this? Bethany asked, her usual condescension replaced by genuine interest. I have been with the agency for 8 years, promoted to task force leader 3 years ago. My father's brow furrowed. 3 years. But at Thanksgiving 2 years ago you were complaining about budget cuts and office politics. That was my cover story, I admitted. Easier than explaining why I could not discuss my actual work. The waitress arrived to take our order, providing a brief pause in the conversation. I ordered my usual black coffee and eggs while my family made their selections with less attention to the menu than to our unfolding discussion. Once the waitress left, Ethan leaned forward. So last night when you rushed out, was that a real mission, like catching bad guys? Despite the childish phrasing, I appreciated his enthusiasm. Yes, we apprehended a suspect who had defrauded investors of millions and was attempting to flee the country. That is actually impressive, Sam, Bethany admitted, seeming to struggle with this reassessment of her younger sister. Why did you never tell us? My mother asked, hurt evident in her voice. We are your family. I considered my answer carefully. Initially, it was about operational security. Later, it became clear that you had all formed a particular view of my career choices, and frankly, I got tired of defending myself. It was easier to let you believe what you wanted about my job. We never meant to make you feel that way, my mother protested weakly. Did not you? I countered gently. Last night before the revelation, you were all quite clear about how disappointing my career was, how I was wasting my potential, how I needed to change to meet the Wilson standard of success. My father had the grace to look uncomfortable. We only wanted what was best for you. No, Dad. You wanted what you thought was best for me. There is a difference. Our food arrived, creating another natural pause in the conversation. As we began eating, the dynamic between us had shifted noticeably. For the first time in years, my family was actually listening to me. I cannot discuss specifics of my work, I continued, but I can tell you that it is challenging, important, and exactly what I want to be doing. I have received commendations that I cannot show you, and led operations that occasionally make the news, though you would never know my involvement. Is it dangerous? My mother asked, maternal concern finally overriding social ambition. It can be, but I am well trained and have an excellent team. The money, Bethany said suddenly. When I offered to pay for your dinner, suggested you could not afford the restaurant. All this time, what do you actually earn? I smiled slightly. My compensation is classified, but let us just say I am doing fine. My investment portfolio is probably comparable to Richard's, though with a different risk profile. Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. Seriously, but you never mentioned. Because it was never about the money for me, Ethan. I chose this career because it matters, not because of the salary or status. My father was uncharacteristically quiet, processing this new reality where his supposedly underachieving daughter was actually highly accomplished in a field he had dismissed. I owe you an apology, Samantha, he finally said, surprising all of us. I have clearly misjudged both you and your career. We all have, my mother added. I just never imagined a federal agent in the family. It is a lot to process, I acknowledged. And there are still many things I cannot share with you. My work requires confidentiality, which means parts of my life will remain private. We understand, Bethany said, though. I suspected she was still adjusting to this new dynamic where she could not automatically claim superiority. As breakfast continued, our conversation gradually shifted. For the first time in years, my family asked questions about my life with genuine interest, even if I could only provide limited answers. They shared their own updates without the competitive edge that had characterized our interactions for so long. It was not perfect. Years of established patterns could not change overnight. But as we finished our meal, I felt something I had not experienced with my family in a very long time: respect. The week following my return to D.C. headquarters brought a whirlwind of activity. The Blackwood arrest had accelerated our larger investigation, with new leads emerging daily as we traced his network of associates. Director Charlotte had personally commended our team on the successful operation, noting that the intelligence gathered would strengthen several related cases. Yet amid the professional satisfaction, my thoughts kept returning to the unexpected family revelation. For years I had compartmentalized my life, keeping my family separate from my true professional identity. Now that the walls had come down, I was still processing what it meant for our relationship moving forward. In my office overlooking the Potomac, I was reviewing case files when Agent Eleanor, my longtime mentor, stopped by. At 55, Eleanor had navigated the complexities of a demanding career and family life with grace, becoming something of a role model to younger agents. "Heard your family dinner took an unexpected turn," she remarked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Within our close-knit team, news traveled fast. You could say that I smiled ruefully. 8 years of carefully maintained cover blown by an enthusiastic trainee server. Eleanor laughed. Sometimes the universe forces our hand when we are not ready to make a move ourselves. How are they taking it? Still adjusting. My father called yesterday with questions about security clearances, as if understanding the classification system would somehow help him categorize my career properly. My mother is simultaneously worried about my safety and excited about the prestige once she figured out how to casually mention it at her charity meetings. And your siblings. Bethany sent a gift basket to my apartment with a card saying, "To my sister, the secret agent. She is trying in her way." Ethan keeps texting me questions about surveillance technology. I think he is hoping I have access to spy gadgets like in the movies. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. Family relationships are never simple, especially when they have to recalibrate their entire perception of you. Give them time. That is the strange part, I admitted. For years, I resented their dismissal of my career, their assumption that I had settled for less. I thought if they ever learned the truth, I would feel vindicated, triumphant. But you do not. Not exactly. There is relief, certainly, but also sadness for all the years of genuine connection we missed because they could not see beyond their narrow definition of success. Eleanor considered this. You know, when I first joined the agency, my father was convinced I was throwing away my law degree. He had mapped out my entire career at his firm, complete with partnership track and corporate clients. We barely spoke for 2 years after I chose this path instead. What changed? Time. Perspective. Eventually, he saw that I had found fulfillment in work that mattered to me. The validation I had craved from him became less important once I fully embraced my own choices. Her words resonated with me. The truth was, somewhere along the way I had stopped needing my family approval. My confidence in my path had grown independently of their recognition. Perhaps that was why the revelation, when it finally came, felt less monumental than I had imagined. Over the following months, my relationship with my family evolved gradually. My father, always respect-driven, began treating me as a professional equal, occasionally asking carefully worded questions about my work that I could actually answer. My mother's worry about my safety never fully subsided, but it came from a place of genuine concern rather than disappointment. Bethany and I established a tentative new connection. During a video call, she actually asked about my day without any condescension in her voice. I realized I never really knew what your life was like, she admitted. I made assumptions based on what I thought success should look like. Even Ethan surprised me. When his company faced potential security threats, he called me for advice rather than dismissing my expertise. I should have asked you years ago, he said. All this time you were the security expert in the family, and none of us knew it. By the time the holidays approached, I found myself considering their invitation to join the family, gathering something I would have automatically declined in previous years. The thought of spending time with them no longer filled me with dread. We had reached, if not perfect understanding, at least mutual respect. What I had learned through this experience went beyond family dynamics. I had discovered that true self-worth comes not from external validation, but from internal alignment with your own values and purpose. For years, I had secretly hoped for my family recognition while telling myself it did not matter. The irony was that only when I truly no longer needed their approval did I find a way to connect with them authentically. One afternoon in early December, I received an unexpected call from my father. "Samantha," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I received an invitation to a recognition ceremony at the federal building next month. Your name is on it." I smiled. This would be the Civilian Service Award ceremony, where my team was being recognized for the Blackwood case, one of the few public acknowledgments our work ever received. "Yes, I am receiving a commendation. It is not classified, so family can attend. Your mother and I would like to be there, if you are comfortable with that." The simple request contained layers of meaning. My father, who had spent years pushing me toward his definition of success, was now asking permission to celebrate mine. "I would like that," I replied honestly. "I owe you an apology, Samantha," he continued. "I spent so many years measuring you against a standard that was never right for you. I could not see that you had found your own path to excellence." "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." After we hung up, I stood by my office window, watching the city lights begin to emerge as dusk settled over Washington. My journey had come full circle in ways I never expected. The secret I had kept to maintain professional discretion had also protected me from potential rejection. Now, with truth in the open, I had found something more valuable than validation: the freedom to be fully myself with my family. The next family dinner would be different. There would still be moments of tension, old patterns that resurfaced, adjustments to be made. But we would sit at the table as adults who were learning to accept each other's choices and celebrate each other's different versions of success. In the end, the most profound lesson was not about proving my worth to others, but discovering that true confidence comes from living authentically, even when that means disappointing expectations or breaking from tradition. Success is not measured by titles, salaries, or social recognition, but by the integrity with which you follow your own path and the impact you make in areas that matter to you. So, what about you? Have you ever had your achievements overlooked or dismissed by the people closest to you? How did you handle that situation? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your own definition of success. And if you know someone who might need this reminder that their path is valid even without external validation, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes, the people who underestimate you are giving you the greatest gift: the freedom to exceed their expectations on your own terms.